Chicken jockey,
Flint and
chicken
Steel.
jockey. The nether.
We edge
Wrong
ever
episode.
closer.
Wrong episode. Anyway, good morning,
uh,
afternoon, evening, wherever you are, whatever the intro is, it's usually your thing. Welcome back to the Double Feature Podcast, episode 9 now.
yes.
And I'm Dan, obviously. That's Mr. L
Yo.
Productions. He's right there, right there. And we originally were going to have this episode on the Minecraft movie, but that's been pushed back to next episode. But this one is on Mickey 17, Bong
Yes.
Joon-ho's latest film. That's going to be our spotlight film for this one. Uh, I was going to say it's the first like non-IP film, but it is actually based on a book. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit of a but it's not obviously not like a sequel or a franchise and whatnot, which is something interesting.
Yeah.
And it's had an interesting production history, a lot of delays. Obviously, Bong Joon-ho's latest film after Parasite, which got loads of attention and whatnot, got on loads of critical praise. So everyone was kind of thinking, what's he going to do next? And there was a lot riding on this film, and yeah, I'm really interested to talk about this one, and really looking forward to it. It's one I've been looking forward to for a while.
I figured it'd be the kind of thing you wanted to cover, so I made sure I watched it
Yeah,
while I was
he
out in
can.
Florida.
He finally conceded. He finally conceded. um, but before we talk about Mickey 17, we are obviously, of course, as tradition on the podcast, we are going to be covering the current movie news that we talk about. Starting with, I hate doing these segments, but we're starting with another passing of a Hollywood legend. I hate the fact that as well we've had to do three of these in a row because like obviously last episode was Gene Hackman, the episode before it was
Oh,
David
wow.
Lynch,
Yeah.
and that now we're talking about the recent passing of Val Kilmer, who passed away at the age of 65
A
a
couple of
few
days
days ago.
ago, not long.
As we were, yeah, I think it was, yeah, a few days ago, yeah. But yeah, of course, Val Kilmer, almost like quite an underrated actor. He appeared in quite a lot of films, stuff like Heat, True Romance. He played Jim Morrison in the Doors biopic film. He played Batman in
Batman.
Batman Forever.
Yeah.
Of course, Iceman in Top Gun, and reprised his role in Maverick for a little cameo. That was, I think, his final film role, Top Gun Maverick, when he appeared again.
Probably, yeah.
I think it
Because he
was,
had the throat
and
cancer, and so he couldn't
yeah,
speak much.
because of course they've for the past 10ish years he'd suffered from throat cancer, and they do obviously acknowledge that in Maverick. But yeah, again, quite young, 65. That's not that old, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, this is the thing yeah, I hate doing all these, but obviously, best wishes to his family, his friends, his fans, and the amount of like I guess like Hollywood legends that we're kind of losing. Like it is. It's hitting you. I think it's. I was thinking about it actually with his passing. If you remember in Maverick, because obviously Iceman passed away.
Hmm.
And if you think of that, it's like we're currently, Top Gun Maverick, obviously a very current film in that sort of sense, and reflecting how the older generation are now passing away and they're passing on and moving on and whatnot. And there's not many of them left. Tom Cruise is like one of the only ones left in that sort of way. And I feel like it's almost like art imitating life, and it's like just like how Iceman is another one of those who passed on in the world of the film, Val Kilmer is another Hollywood legend who's like, passed on in real life, and it's a shame.
Yeah.
I always hate doing these, but as I say, we always want to pay tribute to any of these people, and best wishes to his friends and family. So, so yeah, moving on from that, moving on to a little bit lighter because we need to lighten the tone a bit. Some more movie news. I honestly thought this was a joke initially because it actually came out on April the 1st. So I genuinely thought this was some elaborate April Fool's joke, but no, it is legitimate. So, and it is to do with Quentin Tarantino, one of my favorite filmmakers, and obviously an iconic filmmaker. And there's been a lot of discussion of what Tarantino will do next because he's always said, I'm only going to direct 10 films. His last film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that was his ninth film, if you don't count the two Kill Bills as different ones. But yeah, he's done 9 films. He's only going to do one more film. He was working on a film for a while called like The Movie Critic. That got scrapped. But his next project that he's written is actually a sequel to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Actually, hang on, let me get the poster. I got the poster for it here. I do love that poster, but yeah, of course, this is his last film that he did back in 2019. and he's written a sequel for it, focused more on Brad Pitt's character, Cliff Booth, and it's been pitched as a Netflix film to be directed by David Fincher, who did Seven and Fight Club. So he's worked with Brad Pitt before. But yeah, this is like for me, this is quite interesting. What do you make of this?
I don't think I've actually ever seen any of his films. Uh,
I was going to ask. I don't think you have you?
no, I haven't, but I have
I
heard
need to.
of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I've heard of it.
I need, yeah, because I remember when it came out. Obviously, I was a bit too young to watch it when it first came out, but I do remember it coming out in that kind of summer because it was, I said, 2019 and whatnot. But I think is, I really do love this film. It's kind of, because Tarantino has those iconic films like Pulp Fiction and Django and Inglourious Bastards. I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is having that same impact. It's really left an impact on a lot of people, and it's really kind of it's a film that's really stuck with people, and it's also a film that for me anyway, I love the vibe of it. I love the characters. I love the world of like 60s LA in Hollywood. So to explore that in another film, I'm really looking forward to it. And Brad Pitt was great in the film as Cliff Booth, as a stunt guy. And so, I'm really interested to see what this will be about.
Yeah, it's interesting that he's decided only to do 10 films. That's
Yeah,
very
he's always
fascinating.
had that. He's always had that thing, and he said it many times in interviews. But it's kind of he kind of goes to this like he's got this kind of philosophy of directors as they get older get weaker, and in some cases that's true, but in other cases I don't think it is. I mean, funny enough, actually going to talk about a Martin Scorsese film. He's getting on now, obviously he's in his 80s and whatnot, but some of his last few films have been bangers, and some of the highlights of his career. And I'm going to be talking about one of them in part three, but yeah, I mean, he can do what he wants. It's his career at the end of the day. I mean, he's loaded.
Yeah,
So, but it's an interesting one. It's an interesting idea and philosophy. I don't fully subscribe to it, but is what it is.
yeah.
But yeah, but I am interested in seeing this film. But that's that. In terms of other news, have we got anything else?
Yes, so a little over a year ago, April 1st last year, the team at Saw announced that Saw 11 would be delayed to this year. They recently announced it's just been completely cancelled. This is due to various disagreements between the producers and the company about what direction the movie should take.
Creative differences.
Yes. However, recently, somehow, Billy the puppet from the film posted on social media and has made it very clear that the game is not over. So hopefully, we'll see Saw 11 go somewhere in the future, whether it's with a different company or different people working on it. But the director, Kevin Gruter, something like that, I don't know how to pronounce his surname, he's still got the plans to go with it some way. It sounds like the basis of this movie is going to be similar, for those who've seen them, to Saw 6, which did quite a bit
Mhm.
better with critics than the other early Saw films.
Hopefully.
It's going to obviously have more of Jigsaw in. It's going to be kind of direct continuation from Saw 10. So I would really love to see it. Hopefully we'll get it eventually, but for now,
Hopefully, yeah.
game over.
Because the thing is, well, because obviously I haven't seen the Saw films yet, but I plan to and whatnot. But really, as of late, some of the last few films, they've been kind of picking up steam again. Really, the momentum's kind of because there was a bit in like the 2010s where it was very just dead franchise,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah, well, the
So
last
they've
kind
been
of main film was in 2010, and then they did a revival in 2017. They did
Jigsaw. Yeah, I
the
remember that coming out.
spin-off with Chris Rock in 2019. And then Saw 10, which came out about 2 years ago, was
Yeah,
the highest critic rated film, and it was the only one that's been certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. All the other ones, even the first one, got a Rotten score.
damn.
It has one of the highest IMDb scores out of the franchise. I think it's between that and the first one. So Saw 10, like critically, Saw 10 is the best Saw movie in terms of critic
Mhm.
response.
I know
So
a
we
lot of
really
fans have
thought,
praised it as well.
yeah, a lot of fans really liked it as well. I loved it. Saw 10's my favorite one, I think.
Mhm.
It's just obviously we thought, okay,
The
last
franchise is
September
picking
we were
up
going to
again.
get it, and then we thought,
Yeah,
okay, well we'll get it this September, and now nothing.
I don't
But
know. I think it's a
we've
shame.
survived longer breaks between films
Mhm.
for the Saw franchise. I don't
I mean,
think it's dead.
I mean, hopefully it can get it. They can get it obviously right for the fans. But I do feel for them because it's like it did seem like the franchise was kind of picking up momentum again. So that is a
Yeah.
shame. Um, but so we talked about like some of the news of films that are and aren't happening. Shall we talk about some films that have recently come out and TV shows? Well, I've got a TV show I want to mention.
Yeah.
But some of the recent things that have come out. So I wanted to watch this for the podcast. I wasn't able to just because time's not been on my side this past month. I've not had a moment to breathe, it feels like, with uni and all that sort of stuff. But this TV show I want to talk about, it's on Netflix. It's a limited series, Adolescence. This has really gripped, particularly in the UK, it's really gripped the culture at large and whatnot.
I don't really
Because
know anything about it, but I've heard about that everyone seems to
yeah,
be kind of obsessed with it, but I don't really know what
hmm
the deal is with it, so tell me.
yeah. So basically, Adolescence. It's about as a limited series. It stars Stephen Graham, and also he produced it as well. And each episode is basically shot as if they're like one take. It does that kind of trick.
Okay.
So for me, as like a filmmaker, that kind of is interesting. But the whole premise of the show is it's about a teenage boy who stabs one of his classmates, and it's the kind of fallout of that. So
Oh,
obviously, it's really capturing a lot of the kind of fears we're having at the minute in the UK with like knife crime and whatnot. It's kind of capturing that element of it, and it explores themes of like masculinity, online influences, and like the impact it has on younger people, like teenagers and kids and whatnot. And it just seems really interesting, I think. And
it's very
it's kind of
timely.
very timely. It's kind of reminded me of if you remember last year, the post office drama.
Yeah,
Do you remember
yeah.
that? Do you remember that? Another British drama that really captured the nation and kind of even had like government people being like, kind of influencing their decisions. And that's,
Mm.
obviously it shouldn't obviously take a TV drama to address these issues, but it does show, for me anyway, I think it shows the positive impact that the art can have. You know,
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you could even throw, I guess, Baby Reindeer into that camp because another British, comedy, dark comedy, but again, got a lot of people talking. These are the kind of things that these are the kind of shows that are capturing people, particularly in the UK. So, I find it interesting, and I really do want to check out Adolescence. Um, yeah, I say I would have watched it for this episode, but time just wasn't on my side this time.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I got a couple of things to reel off real quick before we get to kind of more trailer upcoming stuff. First
Yeah,
of all, I want to discuss that I watched a movie while I was out in Florida. I watched The Monkey, the new horror film by the director of
Monkey,
Long Legs. Monkey!
Monkey.
Yes, the uh,
Osgood
the new
Perkins,
the
though.
new horror film by Osgood Perkins. Yeah. So I read an interesting article about this guy in the Empire magazine. So he lost his mom in a freak accident, and his dad was on a 9/11 plane. And so he wanted to create this film about how people can die in just the most ridiculous freak accident ways possible, and then link it to, and in the film they link it to this monkey that plays his little snare drum, and every time he does, someone dies in some completely ridiculous Final Destination style death.
Yeah.
And there's this common theme that throughout the film, but just everybody dies, and that's just life.
There's no like
There's a real dark
it's
humor
just
to it. There's no
yeah
rhyme or
that's
reason
good.
to the death. It's
It's
something that
just
happens.
pure
Pure
chaos, pure
chaos, yeah.
chaos.
And
It's
I
like
really
Joker and
like that
Dark Knight
about
kind of.
it. Yeah. It's a very short film. It's only about 90 minutes. It doesn't
Oh, good.
necessarily feel like though that it has like a full conclusion, but it
Hmm.
is quite fun. It's quite a fun film. It's a fun little dark comedy. But I really like when he's kind of done with that. So I would recommend watching The Monkey. It's not a huge
It's
time cost or anything. It's not like going to
yeah
watch like a
that
3 hour thing or whatever.
yeah that's good. Like I think we need like some shorter films. Like not everything has to be a bloody 4 hour bloody. Not
Not
everything has to be
everything
The
needs to be The
Brutalist.
Brutalist.
No, God, no. I had to carve out an entire day for that film.
Yeah.
Literally, I had to leave the house about 12 o'clock, like noon, and I got back home about 7. Like, because of actually getting there and back, and it's just,
Yeah. But yeah, The
yeah,
Monkey, good film, would
yeah.
recommend.
I would like to check it out. That, to be fair,
Another film that's come out recently, I've not seen. I do want to talk about it because this shocked me. I want to talk about
I
real
want,
quick Snow White.
and I want to shoot myself because I cannot. I okay, get it over with.
I want to talk about Snow White and the Seven CGI Abominations for a second. Because I saw the IMDb score. Now, here's a little bit of context. Last year, I watched Megamind 2, the Doom Syndicate.
Yeah.
And that was bad. And that's probably the lowest rated IMDb film I've ever seen. And that's got a 2.5 out of 10. The only films I've really seen on IMDb with lower scores are like the mockbusters, the blatant rip-offs, things like Ratatouille
Mhm.
and stuff like that.
Or
But
what's up, Balloon to the rescue?
What's Up, Balloon to the Rescue, things like that. Snow White has 1.5 out of 10 on IMDb. It doesn't take very many good reviews to get you above 2, so I don't know how they
Mhm.
managed it, but they got a
I, I
1.5.
I think something to obviously bear in mind with this. A lot of it is probably review bombing. I
A
think
lot
that's
of it
definitely a
is,
factor.
probably.
But at the same time, I think people just don't care enough to defend it, and
Yeah.
that's how I feel because anything to do with any Snow White, or not just that, but also any of the Disney live action remakes. Do you want to know my genuine opinion on any of them? It's a five-word response, right?
I
I
don't give
don't
a...
give a shit. I, honest to God, I couldn't care less about Snow White. It's just like Rachel Zegler is like the Antichrist to some people. It's like, yeah, she's not the best in interviews, but like, who cares? Just go watch the original if you're like upset. Just like, it doesn't matter. Just don't go and see it if you don't care about it. If you don't like the look of it, yeah, it looks ugly and it's soulless, but just don't watch it. Go watch the original. It's still there. You know,
We love the Dan ranting moments.
I can't. I just hate Disney live action remakes. I hate soulless corporate slop. I don't like it. I don't like it, man. I don't like it.
Bro's
Yeah.
popping off. Man,
Oh,
I don't
again, it's the heat. It's the heat, man. Yeah.
It's the heat. I don't
Yeah.
intend on watching it, but I've really
Neither do
enjoyed
I.
watching all the memes and the funny comments and
Hmm.
everything. But it's been a
Yeah.
whole. Another thing, though, another thing that has been interesting in the media is for quite a while there's been a bit of a push about a movie that Warner Bros. Tried to write off for a tax refund. Now, you remember
Yeah.
that they did this with Batgirl, or was it
I do
Batwoman?
remember
It
that
was one
one.
of those.
Batgirl. Batgirl. Yeah.
Batgirl, yeah. They completely wrote it off. They got the tax money. They destroyed the film, and that was it. End of story. Now, we had a similar issue with a movie called Coyote versus Acme. This is a Looney Tunes film about obviously Wile E. Coyote, Roadrunner. And
Yeah.
this movie got made and then got written off. And they tried to sell it off to other companies if they wanted it, and nobody wanted it. So it was just assumed that this was a done, dead deal, and it was buried in the ground.
I gotta say, I don't entirely believe that other studios wouldn't want it. I don't believe that.
Yeah, I don't either. I think someone would have got it. But ultimately, recently, it's come to light that a company has bought this movie for I mean, it sounds like a big number, but in terms of movies, it's quite a low price of $50 million. That
Yeah,
is
that's
it.
not too big.
Considering all
Is this
of,
like distribution?
I
Is
don't
this
know.
like they're buying the distribution rights to it or something?
I think so. I think they're just buying like everything to do with the movie
Oh,
they've
yeah.
bought for 50 mil. And I think based on the amount of kind of public awareness there is of this movie and what it's been through, I think a lot of people will go and watch it because it's become a whole media thing. And I think it will very easily pass 50 million. I think it could be really profitable because of all of the media that's been behind it and about the whole thing
Hopefully.
with Warner Bros. And ultimately, I think it's really nice that this movie now has been given another chance at life and that the people who've put their time and effort into it will actually get to
Mhm.
see it come to something,
Yeah.
which would be
That'd be
nice for
great. Yeah.
them. Because I can't imagine how
Yeah.
awful it would be if you spend all this time making something, especially with animating, when you
Mhm.
spend all this time
Oh
animating
God.
and then they just throw it away for a quick tax refund that you're never going to get any part of. It's
Yeah. It's
just,
just I
it's really
hate
nice
that
that they're
again.
bringing it back and that it's got a chance now to get a cinema release.
Like if I can have another rant about corporate
Go on,
movie
go on,
making,
pop off.
another one. But I do hate it. Even like I know I remember I distinctly remember with the Batgirl film getting taxed right off and whatnot. Regardless of whether or not the film was any good or not, that doesn't matter. Like people spent years of their life making it. If it's a bit different when like a concept for a film falls through, because
Mm,
obviously, it's a development stage, ideas can fall through. When the film is made and shot, and people's hard-earned time and money have gone into it, release it. It's just,
yeah.
it just doesn't. It's kind of scummy if I'm being honest. So
I
I am
think
glad that
like
it's Wild Coyote's, coming
yeah.
back.
I think like if it's a case of you made a movie and something happened in the world wherein by if you release this movie it's going to be really insensitive, okay, maybe don't release it. But otherwise, if you've made a
Or
movie,
at least,
get it out
yeah,
there. They put
or at least
Madam Web
shelve it
out
for a bit.
there. They put Craven out there. They put Amelia Perez out there. They put Unfrosted out there. Why not release your Wile E. Coyote film? Wile E.
But
Coyote's
also,
the best Looney Tune in my opinion. I love
like
that guy.
like just based on how it looks, it honestly looks like almost like the Warner Bros. Version of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Quite
It kind of
possibly, yeah.
it
It's got
kind of
that
gives
kind
me
of
that
feel.
vibe. Yeah, it kind of gives me
Yeah,
that vibe.
so
And Roger Rabbit's fantastic.
I'm definitely going to watch this film when it comes out.
Me too. Yeah, me too. It'll be great.
Speaking of films I've watched, you've discussed a few
Yeah.
films in the past, and I finally got
Um,
around to watching them.
this
So we're
is
going to
this is the bit
discuss.
I've been so looking forward to this, right? So get Heretic out of the way so I can just hear the other two.
Okay. Heretic. Heretic is an interesting
Okay,
one.
actually a bit of context, Mr. L went to Florida, as you
I
all
went to
know,
Florida, and on my way
and
home, I watched a bunch of
these
movies
are
on
the
the
three
plane.
films. These are the films he watched on the plane. So the first one was Heretic, right? What do you think of it?
We'll go in reverse order because Heretic was the last one I watched on the plane.
Oh,
So
but it's the one I give the least shit about.
Heretic was really good actually. I didn't expect to enjoy it, but considering it's very rooted in the topics of religion, which is not something I usually throw any interest to. But my dad watched on the way out and he said, "Give it a watch. It was pretty good." So on the way home, I watched it. So the story is about two Mormon missionary girls who stop by houses to try and get people to join their religion. And they stop off at the house of this creepy old British guy played by Hugh Grant. Played very, very well by Hugh Grant. He's
I
really
know
good in
he
the
got a bit
role.
of he got. I think didn't he get like a BAFTA nom for this film?
I do not know what nominations he got, but
I think he got a
it was
bit for
good.
this film.
It was good. And
That's good then. I like you,
what
Grant.
the whole movie kind of follows Hugh Grant trying to have kind of a discussion with these two girls about the psychology, theology, and ideology of religion and what the one true religion is. And then kind of partway through, it starts to become a little bit of a horror where he really kind of tests their faith with these kind of decisions. Uh, it almost emulates a little bit of like kind of the little Saw vibe at this point, where it's like you got to choose.
Oh,
And at one
yeah.
point, he does like a test of faith where he writes him on one door belief and on the other door disbelief, and says one of these doors takes you out the house. Pick which one. And there's all these little kind of interesting things behind it. And I think ultimately it was a lot better than I expected. There's a lot of interesting points thrown out in there. It had a good kind of underlying kind of thriller vibe to it and kind of a little bit horror. So overall, solid film, would recommend. Let's get to the stuff I know you've been waiting for.
Yes,
Minecraft movie.
yes.
Chicken jockey.
Clinton Steel.
We'll get to Minecraft in a bit. Let's go through the
Yeah,
stuff you've
yeah,
been waiting for. So we'll go
yeah.
reverse order. So the second movie I watched on the plane was The Substance.
This is my favorite 2024 film, as you remember.
I can see why. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. It was a tough watch, though. Some of the body
Fair.
horror was very
Yeah,
difficult to watch, even
I
for me. And I watched all the Saw films, but this was difficult for me, honestly.
think even the same for me because I love like a lot of body horror movies of like the 80s, like slasher films and whatnot. And
Yeah.
even this, some of the stuff, and when I watched it, was like, oh god! And my dad was like, just sat at the table and he was just pissing himself laughing, just like, look at him here. But I think it's something kind of like Heretic. It's almost like a horror movie with a brain. It has a bit
Yes,
more
it
to
is.
say. What do you think of all that? Because obviously practical effects are amazing, but what do you think of like the story and like the themes of like aging and like female beauty standards? What do you
I
think of
think
all that
it's
stuff?
really good. I think there is something there where, like, with like it's going to be a little stereotypical, but with men in acting, they can keep going until 70s, 80s. Stallone, Schwarzenegger still putting stuff out. With
Hmm.
women in acting, you find that they usually boot them out the door by the age of 40 just because they're not up to
Yeah.
the beauty standards anymore that Hollywood wants to see. I don't think that's so much the case now, but that was kind of the general case for many,
Yeah.
many, many years. Was that, women were in their prime 20 to 30, and then once they're
Hmm.
kind of past their kind of prime with their looks, you just got them out and you replaced with someone younger. And that was kind of the essence of the story, was that the main character, Elizabeth Sparkle, was it? She's
Yeah.
kind of, she
Demi
reaches her
Moore.
50th birthday. They don't want her in there anymore. They were looking for someone younger to replace her. So she decides to take this questionable substance to kind of become a younger version of herself, and eventually gets a little too addicted to being the younger version of herself. which I think is also quite an interesting thought that everyone kind of wants to feel younger and look younger again.
Yeah.
And the way that she kind of sacrifices the body of the old to be the young
Hmm.
is quite an interesting way on how we kind of perceive beauty and how we kind of crave that's the youth of the of her younger self. And ultimately, in the end, she goes through a lot of different kind of body transformations. A lot of stuff, again, very, very hard to watch. But
Yeah.
it was more so, though, I found the stuff earlier on, like when the second body was kind of being birthed, that was quite hard to watch. I
Yeah, that was.
the
And
ultimate,
when Sue has to sew
yeah,
Elizabeth back up,
yeah.
it's horrible.
Yeah, ultimately, the final result monster at the end is nowhere near as grotesque to me as what we had to see earlier in the film. That was a
Mhm.
much harder to watch. Kind of
But I
seeing
think,
Demi Moore go
oh
through the transformations to looking older and more frail with like these completely
yeah,
withered body parts was far more horrifying to me.
yeah, it's nasty. But I do adore how unhinged that finale is.
It is
I adore how,
completely off the rails.
and I think that's the thing. It feels so uncompromised as a vision, and I love that.
Yeah.
You know.
I really like what it did. I like that it's kind of horror, but the horror is not the main thing here. The main thing is kind of the brains behind the horror and the story in there
Yeah.
and the underlying messages and everything. I thought it was a really interesting watch. Yeah, I
Mhm.
did
Yeah.
enjoy it. It was a good
I'm so
pick.
glad you did. I'm so glad you did. And then the what was the other one?
And we'll get to that right after this break.
Anything you can dream about here, you can dream about. Right here! Surprise, motherfucker! I am chicken jockey.
Honora, yes. Okay, so now we're going
Oh
to
yeah,
discuss Honora. Um,
I'm
so,
so happy about
Honora, this
this.
was the first film I watched on the plane, and I don't know what I
I'm so
expected, but it's not what I expected.
wait, what?
I don't know
It
what I
is
was expecting going on into this, but it was just completely different to what I expected anyway. It was
is it
just
good? Good? I
completely
expect.
crazy. Good, yes, good, but
I mean, it is a bomb. It is crazy. I will give
it's
you
a
that.
crazy film. But
Yeah, that is fair enough. Yeah.
it's quite an interesting one. It spends kind of the first maybe like third of the film getting into this relationship between Annie and oh
Yvonne.
crap, if yeah, you get kind of start the relationship building up and everything, and then next thing you know, his family's like, "Did you just marry a hooker?" And then he ends up completely bailing, and it becomes this kind of crazy road trip to kind of just find where this guy's run off to.
Yeah, it's a full-on
Uh,
like screwball comedy. Yeah,
yeah,
it's so funny.
it's just it's so completely different to what I expected. And there's a lot of character in there as well. There's a lot of
Mhm.
there's a lot of like unexpected humor.
The bit that gets me is that it's the house invasion that
Yeah.
stop screaming. Some of the it's just it's class. I love it.
It's a very quirky film,
Very, yeah.
it is good. It was good. It was unlike anything else I've seen, but very quirky.
That's a good thing. That's good. What did you make of the ending? Because when I've talked about the film, I've made a lot of comments about how the ending, how it's really impactful. What do you think of that?
It was very abrupt. I was very surprised that was the ending. It's
I was initially, but that again, that is like the point of it. It is meant to be just so. It does take you off guard in that sort of sense.
I get the ending
Um,
though. I get why they did it, but at first I was like,
mhm.
wait, that's it?
The
That was the ending?
thing is, I felt like that when I first watched it. But I think if I rewatch that, it's gonna hit so differently. The ending will, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Definitely interesting. It was a good trio of movies to watch on my way home.
Mhm. How would you rank your little trilogy of, how would you rank them? I'm actually more nervous than you are.
I think in the order I spoke about them.
From best to worst or worst to best?
Best or worst. It's close. It's very
Ooh,
close.
damn.
But I think for me it's really close between Substance and Heretic, but obviously they're very different films. But I think slightly
Yeah.
Heretic, maybe.
Oh,
Maybe
damn.
slightly.
Damn, I did not expect that.
I think these are the kind of films where to really definitively order them, I would have to watch them multiple times because they're all very close.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
But I think slightly Heretic edges it for me. I think just you never really kind of knew where it was going to go next. There was always this kind of like unsettling aura around Hugh Grant's character, and kind of where the movie was going to go. Uh, it was, yeah, man, it's close, but I think slightly Heretic. But I
Fair
did enjoy
enough.
them all. They were very good
That
films.
is that that is great to hear. That is great to hear.
It's Now we get to talk about the part where we talk about some upcoming films, and the first thing is obviously next episode we're going to be watching the Minecraft movie,
Oh
which
man,
has had a million and
we're gonna
one meme edits.
oh god, we're gonna be watching it together. I should say, like in
Absolutely,
person. Yeah.
absolutely.
So yeah, we're gonna go to spoons afterwards, or before, or
We'll
both.
figure it out. We'll figure it
Yeah,
out.
we'll
But
figure
it's
something
gonna
out. Yeah.
be we'll see what
Um,
time the film's on. We'll catch it one day after work
have
probably.
you
But
seen like the McDonald's tie-in for it? Have you like it's insane. Like it's absolutely insane. Like they've got like the Minecraft M instead of the McDonald's M for like the
yeah,
bags, and they've got apple cake like the McFlurries and whatnot. I had one. They're actually not bad,
yeah.
but it's they're not bad actually. But it's bonkers. The build of this film is absolutely insane, and
It's crazy how
you
most
know,
of the memes are just Jack Black saying things from Minecraft, like
yeah, it's just
Ender
like flint and
Pearl,
steel,
the
the
Nether.
nether. No, the best thing is because my mate, shout out to him, Josh, if he's listening. We love you, Josh. You're amazing. But he went to watch it as we're recording yesterday, and he was filming bits of it, and just like the crowd were literally cheering as they went like it's chicken jockey.
Chicken jockey.
No, literally, it was like Avengers Endgame all over again.
This is a crafting table.
It's abs. I cannot wait. We are gonna like be cheering in the cinema. I don't care if we're the only ones
I
doing it. We're
really
gonna do it.
hope that the cinema does it when we watch it. I really hope they will
I
cheer.
hope we're not too late. That's the thing.
Uh,
Because
Now
I
we'll have
hope
to
we don't
catch it
watch it too.
soon. We'll have to catch it soon. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe even this coming week. We'll figure it out
Hope
afterwards.
that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be cool.
Yeah.
So we'll
But
figure it out. One more thing I want to discuss before we head into part two is a trailer
yeah.
that dropped 2 days ago that has completely blown my mind. Five Nights at Freddy's 2.
Oh yeah. Oh
Genuinely,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
trailer looks better than the entirety of the first movie. The trailer is really good. And I think the trailer already has a higher kill count than the first movie. Honestly,
We'll
it
have to
looks
ask
really good.
we're gonna have to ask Dead Meat about that one.
Oh yeah, but
But
I think something for this one is one of the things that is really admirable about the Five Nights at Freddy's movies is the way that they've made the animatronics come to life. With I think Jim Henson's Creature Shop works on it, and
oh yeah.
seeing the animatronics from FNAF 2 come to life is so cool. It's so
That is good.
perfectly remade the characters from Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the game. The toy animatronics are like for like. They look perfect recreations. So I'm just really excited to see where the movie goes. I hope it is much better than the first movie because I was very underwhelmed with the first movie. Based on this trailer, I think it's going to be really good. I can't wait to see more of what these animatronics are going to look like because they just look phenomenal. And that's like the one thing you cannot fault about what we've seen so far with the first movie and second movie is they look amazing. But can't wait to see
Fair
more
enough.
on
But
that.
cracking. I don't really follow FNAF or the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, but I hope it turns out good.
Yeah.
That's all I can really say. That's all I can
Yeah,
really
yeah,
say.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, now
Um,
time for the second part of our little fun
podcast.
episode here, and we are going to be talking about Mickey 17, the new
That's
movie
right.
starring Robert Pattinson, and this was
Yeah.
interestingly based on a book called Mickey 7.
Where's the other 10 in between?
Yeah, so I was reading an interview in my Empire magazine with Bong Joon-ho, and he was talking about how he wanted to add the extra 10 in to kind of really emphasize how disposable Mickey is and how many times he's gone over the same thing over and over and then
It's
getting
like,
left for
yeah,
dead. So he increased it to Mickey 17. This movie,
fair enough.
I think objectively in terms of movie making was probably the best Spotlight we've done. Um, uh, it's definitely in the upper half of rankings for me for Spotlight films.
Hmm.
I enjoyed it. It was a
That's
pretty good
yeah.
film. Obviously, as usual, we do spoilers for part two. So if you
We
haven't
will
seen it
spoil it,
yet,
yeah.
go and watch it. And yeah, it's a really interesting film. I really kind of like. I think the first thing I want to really point out is how I like the interesting voice direction that Robert Pattinson went for with differentiating between 17 and 18.
And 80, yeah, yeah, I like that. I do always love like actors like multi-role like that, and seeing them both like on screen interact. I think is really
Yes.
cool. But
Now,
it's
I
just, I
know
guess
you're going to have a lot that you want to talk about here. So give me your unfiltered thoughts on Mickey 17.
my overall because I guess my little kind of overall little opening statement is that for me personally, this is my favorite of the Spotlight films so far.
I'm not
Um,
surprised.
I mean, yeah, what a surprise! Yeah, what a surprise! Yeah, but yeah, personally, it was. But I didn't know if it would be because I'd heard kind of mixed things about it going in, and I wasn't sure will I love it, but I really did. I really loved the tone and the vibe, what it was going for, the kind of sci-fi mixed with like dark comedy. Because Bong Joon-ho, if you've seen like Parasite, he does like dark comedy very well. It kind of reminded me of like Red Dwarf, like sci-fi comedy.
Yeah.
Kind of gave me vibes of that, and like certain jokes, like when Mickey's out in space and like his hand just gets knocked off and it just flies away. Like just gags like that, I found darkly quite funny. And but it
Yeah.
also had so many for me had plenty of interesting ideas and concepts that I found really interesting. Like the whole thing of like cloning and whatnot, with obviously the multiple Mickeys and whatnot. And then you get kind of these questions of when the two of them interact together, and it's this idea of like, yes, they are biologically, yeah, they are the same person, but from their perspective, they're not. It's like when 18 is now with his partner and Nasha, when they're sort of together, and 17 is like, well, I don't like this, and it makes you think. It's like that's something I would have never considered because it's like, oh, they're just the same person, but from their point of view, they're not. And I think that's really interesting stuff.
Yeah, like they were the
Um,
same person up to 16, and then obviously 17 and 18 split off with everything after 16 being kind of the junction where they have different personalities. Because obviously
yeah,
18 never got 17's memories uploaded because 17 never died.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
so they're the same up to 16, then they become two different people. And it is kind of interesting to see how they interact with each other and how they are very different people at those
Yeah,
iterations. Somehow, like 18 is way more like confrontational and kind of rough around the edges, where 17 is quite kind
a
of
bit more
a
meek. It's kind of meek, isn't
yeah,
he?
kind of meek, a little bit maybe like maybe a little naive or something along those kind of lines.
To a
He's
degree,
very
yeah.
bit timid, and
Yeah,
it's kind of
that
interesting seeing
contrast
how
is
they
great.
interact with each other and then with Nasha. What's
Mhm.
the ethics on if you're banging the clone of someone? Is it cheating?
These are the questions that we're not qualified for. No, not qualified to answer them. Maybe
Dare
ask
we ask what it
Brian
would be like
Cox.
if you banged a clone of yourself? What is that?
I'm
uh,
not. I need to send you
the
that link
ethics of
later.
cloning. The ethics of cloning are a real talking point
Have
here.
you have you
Absolute
seen the
cinema.
extended the extended cut of Attack of the Clones
No.
where they talk about these ethics? I'm joking.
Oh
But
man.
um, but beyond that, it obviously leads to some funny jokes and humor and whatnot. But it's got a hell of a lot of interesting themes. I say the ethics of cloning, but also things like human identity. That's a key staple of sci-fi stories like this. I'm thinking like Blade Runner. I'm thinking Metropolis. These kind of classic sci-fi films and whatnot. Mickey 17 has that with like Mickey's kind of identity crisis of like who's kind of the real one, and it makes you question it in a way. And I enjoyed that.
Mm.
His dynamic with Nasha, that kind of like sense of love that they have. She's really the only person he can trust in this colony. I thought that was quite interesting, and
Yeah.
it's that kind of grand scale sci-fi but intertwined with this kind of personal connection with humans, and I like that kind of stuff. I also enjoyed some of the stuff with some of the ideas of like almost like veganism with like the creepers. Oh, which I find really ironic that we're doing this before the Minecraft movie, and the main creatures are called creepers. I find that so
Yeah,
ironic. But you know the part where obviously because Mickey's 17, he's a carbon copy of himself,
yeah,
and the creepers don't eat him, and they're like, "Oh, am I too processed for you?" And it's like it's kind of like a funny inverse on how we eat processed foods and meats and whatnot. And I thought
yeah.
that was kind of an interesting idea because Bong Joon-ho, he's covered that kind of thing in some of his other films, like anti-meat eating kind of messages and whatnot. He's covered that stuff in his other films. I think Okja is one that he's covered it in. But I thought that was kind of interesting, a funny sort of sci-fi reversal of a Monday thing. I like that when sci-fi does it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's quite interesting about how it has that kind of idea that a lot of movies have, wherein by being an expendable, he's very much kind of lesser than,
yeah,
and most people don't treat him as nicely, except for obviously Nasher, is like
Hmm.
the one kind of light he really has around there, especially in his earlier iterations as well.
yeah.
Um, Interestingly as well is the way that I forget his name. The guy who that Mark Ruffalo plays, the way he kind of treats Mickey as well.
Kenneth Marshall.
Kenneth Marshall, that was
Yeah,
it. Yeah, it has been like a month, but since
fair
I've
enough.
seen it.
Yeah,
But yeah, so like the way he kind of treats him as well of getting him like there's a scene where he invites Mickey 17 to come
for
to
dinner.
have a dinner, and then ultimately they kind of poison him with this new sauce. It's really weird obsession with sauce, that lady. Really weird
Yeah,
obsession with
Tony.
sauce.
Yeah, I do love what Ruffalo and Tony Collette as his wife. I love that they really hammed it up and proper like almost like boo hiss villains. I quite enjoyed how
Yeah.
much they hammed it up and whatnot. But also actually there was a point you reminded me of obviously their relationship. They're really putting on for the public image this
Mm.
folk fake like we are a happy couple and whatnot. And whilst they're like in the public eye and there's like people cameras on them and they're like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? They don't actually love each other. But then you've got Mickey and Nash's that genuine love that they have for each other and like cross cuts between the two of them. And again, another kind of point of like what it means to be human and what it means to love and whatnot. These are themes that I like in sci-fi and whatnot.
It's interesting as well with Kenneth Marshall of like is the portrayal of how to kind of consolidate power over kind of like a society of like
Hmm.
making sure that he's so obsessed with the way that his image is presented and making it look like that he's like the big one in charge of everything. He's the big cheese, you
Yeah,
know. Like
yeah,
he's obsessed with like near the end, like when he's going out to see all the creepers, he's obsessed with making sure that it looks like in the history books that he's been the one to
yeah,
lead the erasure of this threatening species so that they
yeah.
could thrive here. Trying to make himself look like the hero and everything, and ultimately
He's got this
making
like
everyone
god.
idolize him.
He's got a god complex. He wants to be like the savior, basically the second
Yeah.
coming of a messiah or whatever.
Pretty much.
You know.
It's quite an interesting way
Yeah,
how he tries to kind of like twist everything to make it seem like get everyone to kind of
yeah.
almost worship him.
Hmm. The one thing I will actually criticize about him, and it's the only real flaw I have with it, there's been a lot of discourse about the parallels to a certain US president at the moment. Uh, there's certain I
Yeah.
would like to address that because there are obviously a couple
We're
of
going
clear
there.
Trump
Okay.
parallels, like his obviously fans in the film in the world of the film wear red caps, a very obvious like visual shorthand of who it's referring to. At one point, I think he does the little Trump dance. I think at one point,
He does a
the
bit of a
little
dance.
I think he does. It reminded me of that. Very fleeting like visual shorthand and whatnot. Even as somebody who doesn't support Trump, I found it a tad on the nose, I think. But based on some of but I think overall, first of all, I think that does kind of disappear quite quickly, and I think Ruffalo does portray him as his own character. I think I find it anyway,
Yes, though
and I think
Ruffalo
it's
probably really enjoyed the chance to play a character that makes it look like a bad representation of Trump, as he's very outspoken with
yeah,
being kind of on the left side of things and against Trump. So he
yeah,
probably really loved
fair
that.
enough.
I actually did not
I
pick
would,
up on
I
any
would.
of this until we left the cinema and my dad pointed it out, and I was like, Oh, I see it now. But,
Yeah, fair enough. But I think the thing is though, beforehand going into the film, and I'd seen certain reviewers, shall we say, going about, oh, it bashes you over the head of it's a parallel of Trump, and it's like, no, with all due respect, if that is all that you got from the film, that says more about you than it does the film.
yeah.
Because if that's all, because if you didn't point, if you didn't pick up on that, that's
Yeah,
like,
I didn't pick up on it.
yeah.
But
Yeah, and the thing is, it doesn't beat you on the head. It's just a certain visual shorthand that
mm,
is there to create a couple of parallels of the real world. It's not. It's just a little bit of texture. It's not beating you over the head with what this is the thing that just does great on me with certain reviewers online. It really does.
yeah, I mean,
It's
for me
like
anyway, because like I watched it and like I usually go to movies as an escapism from real world stuff. So
yeah,
I'm not looking to find, oh, this is a parallel to
mhm,
this. I'm thinking this is a completely separate situation. This is something
yeah,
completely different. So I'm not really looking to say, oh, okay, well they're trying to say this guy is kind of like this guy, and it's just like,
mhm,
because ultimately I am quite strong on politics sometimes. I tend to not discuss
yeah,
them on public platforms, but so I don't.
yeah.
So I could see why a lot of people would think, oh, it's this, it's that, but I don't think this was necessarily particularly egregious on accounts
No,
of
it's not.
like, yeah, there's a few things. I noticed he did a little dance, and I thought, okay, well, maybe that's maybe slightly inspired, but
It's a tad on the
it's a
it's a
tad.
tad on the nose, and even I'll concede that. But if that's the thing that annoys me, is like if that's all that you take away from the film, is that like there's as we've discussed already, there's so many other things and like
Yeah,
ideas and themes that you can take away from the film because there's quite a lot here, and there's so much more to it than just Orange Man bad. Like,
Orange Man bad.
yeah, but,
Ultimately, though,
but
I
there's so
mean,
much more.
I'm the
Yeah.
kind of person who thinks that I think politics shouldn't have much of a place in the movies unless it's specifically a film about that politician or something, like if it's like a kind of non-fictional kind of film. I don't really like my films to be super loaded with, oh, we're gonna make a big film
Mhm.
about the idea that this person's bad or this ideology is bad. I don't
Mhm.
always like that kind of thing, especially when it interjects into kind of another style of film that you don't expect it's going to be that kind of thing. You don't go into this
Well,
thinking it's
not
going to have that kind of thing. But
well,
ultimately,
not.
in the end,
I wouldn't fully. Oh, sorry.
I think ultimately in the end, it's like
Okay.
if the creator wants to do those kind of
Mhm.
things with their film, they want to make that kind of message. It is their right. It is their freedom to
Yeah.
make that, and we are not to stop them from making the film that they want to make. I will
Mhm.
preach
I
freedom
think.
above
Yeah.
anything else. So I think, who cares if it is
Yeah.
about the Orange Man, because it's
Yeah.
their right to make whatever film they want.
Fair enough. I respect that. I think I'm not fully. I think for me, I always sort of say, yeah, I don't want overloads of politics. I think it's good to have that balance of like have films that are just escapism. But I think genre films and genre stories are. I think that politics still have a place in them, and especially like science fiction, because that the whole base of sci-fi is that you take what's going on in the world currently and kind of almost almost sort of it's like an elastic band. You stretch it to its limit of what it
Yeah,
could be
but
in
it's still the
the
same
future.
band. Yeah,
Yeah, it's still the same band, and you sort of, sometimes you can do it in a serious way, have some biting, political commentary. Sometimes you can do it in like humorous ways with like satire and
yeah,
whatnot. There's all different ways that you can go about it. And I do think, genre stories, can be a good place for politics. I just think it's,
yeah.
not you don't have to
I
do it
feel like
every single time,
though,
but
I feel like it should be though that like you should kind of know going into it this is going to be kind of politics, because politics is such a heated topic at the moment now more than ever.
yeah,
I think that I think a
yeah,
lot of
we're in a
people who
very
want the escapism don't want to go to a film where they think, oh, this will be fine. I can forget about what's going on with the eggs being $12 for a dozen. But then you
yeah.
get into the film and it's like, oh, here's politics. It's like I came here to get away from it. But I feel like if you know you're going into a movie that's going to have politics involved or political undertones, it's like
Hmm.
that's fine. There's a place for that, and I think it can be very impactful. But at certain
Yeah.
points as well, I think there's also times where it should be like keep it out, just so
Hmm.
we can have
Oh, no, no,
something
no,
where we don't have to worry about it. But
yeah.
it's
It's
interesting
a
the way
whole, it's a whole,
politics is shown in
it's a whole
movies.
it's a whole debate, and I do find it a genuinely interesting
It is
conversation.
very, yeah,
I do genuinely find it interesting. But yeah, I think Mickey 17 is the kind of film where yes, it's a genre blockbuster, but I think it has every right, especially if who's making it, Bong Joon-ho, a very, savvy filmmaker in that way. I think it's warranted and whatnot. And besides that, I say it's got great humor, great kind of universal ideas that we've talked about with it. I love the visual style. I love whether it's the stuff on Earth and the kind of just on the verge of a post-apocalypse,
Yeah,
the kind of grimy back alley streets with the rain, or
yeah,
stuff like that, and like the costumes of the characters and whatnot. It's kind of grimy aesthetic, and then obviously the spaceship aesthetic is really interesting. The colors, like in the sort of like the dumping chamber with like the orange hues and then the blue hues of like the birthing chamber. I just
yeah.
like the color scheme. There's obviously the snow planet. Again, just a strong visual aesthetic, I think, overall. Yeah, obviously we said great performances. Rob Pattinson does excellent work as both Mickeys.
I find it
We talked
amazing
about
that this is Robert Pattinson, the same guy who was originally famous for being the guy from Twilight. And now he's got all these
and
big roles, like he's got Batman, and now he's got what could possibly be like a future Oscar-winning role on the table with Mickey 17. He's come quite a long way from being in
and
Twilight.
no, I'm thinking, what's it? Goblet Harry Potter and the Goblet of
Goblet of
Fire. He
Fire,
was
yeah, he
in.
was in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, he was Cedric Diggory or whatever his name was. I don't know. Yeah,
Cedric Diggory, yeah.
um,
He's come a long
yeah, but
way.
yeah, he's come a long way. Yeah, I do like it. I think he's a very good actor. Yeah. But yeah, so Mark Ruffalo, Tony Collette, I really enjoyed them as the villains. They were very hamming it up, but in a fun way. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed Tim Key as the Pigeon Man. I love Tim Key in anything because he's absolute gold. But
Yeah, that was
he
funny. I
was funny.
remember reading
He's so
in
good. He's so
the
good in
kind of
Partridge.
article
He's so good in
about it,
Partridge.
the creator of Mickey 7, the book, was saying, "Okay, where the fuck did the pigeon come from?"
Where did the pigeon come from? I don't know.
Yeah,
They
it
just
was funny. It was
created
funny that they had this
created
whole
like
kind of like talk show segment with Kenneth as well.
yeah,
And that he
that
was
was
trying to
funny.
like make himself like, and part of making himself a big public figure, he was doing this like really cheesy talk show and everything.
Mhm. I think
I
that's again
think
that's another that was another kind of thing. It's that whole the element of like the media and how they influence
yeah.
things. That's prevalent in the film. There's so much in here to like digest on that, and I love that kind of film where you can think about it.
He's almost like a pantomime level villain. It's like his
Yeah,
villain
but it's
level is
fun.
just so extravagantly off the charts. I think it's really fun.
Yeah, it's good. But yeah,
Love to hate him.
overall, yeah, love to
Love
hate
to
him.
hate him.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Is there anything else that you want to
I think that's
mention?
it for me. I think I'll just round off with saying that was a solid like 8 out of 10 film for me. I think it's not
Yeah.
necessarily my favorite thing in the world, but I think it was really well made, good acting, good kind of visuals, good story and feelings and everything. But it's
Mhm.
not necessarily one I'm going to rush to rewatch. But
Fair enough.
ultimately, solid film. I think, yeah,
Hmm.
upper half of our spotlights, to be fair. Like we've done 9 spotlights, and I
Yeah,
can think of maybe two others that are definitely better, in my opinion. I preferred Deadpool Wolverine, I preferred Sonic 3. But
I
I
can understand
think
that.
this was probably better than all the others. And obviously, for me, that's
Mhm.
obviously coming from a standpoint of being a big Marvel fan and a big Sonic fan. So,
Yeah,
but
but
in terms
but for me, is it?
objectively of movie
Sorry.
making, this is objectively the best made movie.
Damn, I didn't expect you to be as positive on this one. I'm surprised, but fair play. But as a big sci-fi fan though, for me, big fan of sci-fi comedy, and this kind of style of sci-fi, the more kind of the more I suppose thought-provoking sci-fi that isn't just
Yeah.
crash bang boom, that kind of sci-fi. But I really enjoy it. It was very much my vibe, sci-fi and comedy, and I just really enjoyed a lot of what it was going for, and it made me think, and I really liked it. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10
Okay, yeah. I really,
for episode 9,
yeah.
a 9 out of 10.
Does that mean Minecraft's going to
That
be
was
10 out of 10?
no, it's going to be like 0, 1, 0. It's going to be like
1.0 out of 10.
yeah,
But,
1.0 out of 10.
but
I
no,
don't
I
know.
thought you would like this film. I thought this would be right up your
Hmm.
street. 'Cause I know you like Bong Joon-ho's previous work. I know you like things that are usually
Yeah,
Oscar level. I know you like sci-fi, a little bit dark comedy, thought-provoking. I
yeah.
thought it'd be completely up your alley, and I knew it was going to be your
It very
favorite
much
one that we
was.
watched. But
Yeah. It was kind of but I was
for
kind of nervous
me,
to say like I didn't know if it was going to like disappoint and whatnot because I'd heard
yeah.
mixed things about it, and ultimately I was very satisfied with what I got, and yeah, and because it's one I've been waiting for a while. It got delayed and whatnot, but yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, it's quite interesting when I take these films. I try and think about all the films we spotlight. I try and think about it in two ways. I think about it as a fan, especially when it's like an
Yeah,
IP, like with Deadpool and with
Marvel
Sonic. I
and
think about it as
whatnot.
a fan, and I try to think about it objectively as a movie with the bias removed. It's not always easy
Yeah,
to remove the preset bias going into a film, but I do try to.
I don't
And that's
think
why I think
inherently
objectively this is the best film. When I take out kind of my
fair.
opinions on existing IP and as a fan and like the emotional reaction to think that might not necessarily be good technically, it's
Yeah.
like when I take all that out of it and I try and look at it objectively of how you make a movie, how good acting performances are, I think this is the
Hmm.
best movie we've seen as a spotlight. But as a
Fair enough.
fan, with my biases, Sonic 3 wins by a landslide for me because I
I
love
think I
Sonic and
think
I
that's
love all these kind of big like crowd pleasing moments, whatever. Same with Deadpool Wolverine. Having watched like almost all of the Fox Marvel movies as well, except for maybe Elektra, I've seen all the others. Like all of those kind
yeah.
of returns and everything was just like big crowd pleasing stuff. And obviously this didn't have that, but obviously Deadpool Wolverine as a movie objectively is not as well made. It's got quite a few flaws as we've discussed in episode one. Go check it out, by the way.
Yeah.
Episode one,
Yeah.
we've discussed the flaws of how like maybe the villain work isn't the strongest. Like maybe it is kind of
Even some of the
doesn't have
like
as
the
much
filmmaking, like
in it.
even the filmmaking, like the CGI and the
There's
green
obviously a
screen
lot of
backdrops, it's a
CGI,
bit
yes,
it's
but
a bit it's a bit, but
yeah.
I think I think especially if you are a fan of it, I don't think you should let that necessarily hinder your enjoyment because it's almost like a reductive argument to say like oh, if you weren't a fan of this you would not enjoy it as much, but it's like, well,
Oh
you
yeah,
are a
no, you
fan,
would
so it
obviously, yeah,
has I think
yeah,
that you can still enjoy it, but obviously if you still don't enjoy something, that's
yeah.
there's all different ways to judge a film and whatnot. It's interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, ultimately, I do try and come into each of these with kind of the two mindsets to be able to try and tackle everything a little better and to kind of give more perspective on it. But no, I think this
Yeah,
was really good film, really good film.
I'm really glad you did it.
Anyway, so I guess it's time to head on to part three. Go,
So
part three.
so
Yeah.
before we get on to part three, there was a question I kind of wanted to. It's something I've been thinking about with Mickey 17 coming out. Obviously directed by Bong Joon-ho, but for me anyway, that was kind of the big selling point because coming off the back of Parasite, this acclaimed director. He's done loads of great films like the past 20 years. A lot of great stuff in the 2000s in Korea, like Memories of Murder, The Host. 2010s, he did some like more Western films like Snowpiercer. So for me, and I think for a lot of people, the big selling point was Bong Joon-ho directing it. It's the next Bong Joon-ho film. So I wanted to kind of pose this question because I'd seen a video that sort of, was on this topic. Do you think the directors are the new movie stars? And what I mean by that is, how like movie stars would often sell a film. So, it's like the new Tom Cruise film, the new Bruce Willis film. And that's not
Yeah,
really
I
much
get
of a
what you're
thing anymore.
saying.
It's not really much
And
of a thing anymore. But do you know a lot of like filmmakers, such as like Mickey 17, the new Bong Joon-ho film, Oppenheimer, the new Christopher Nolan film, that was a big selling point of
that's
that
the
film.
reason. That is the reason why I think that is a correct statement, is because of Christopher Nolan.
Yeah. But
Because
do
that
you
is kind of
think
the
that?
biggest instance where it's like from this director, yep, we're going to go see it. I think they are
Mhm.
kind of becoming the new film star, not to as big of an extent,
Maybe not.
but
Hmm.
not as many directors you have this thing with. But you do find more nowadays with like trailers. It'll say from the director of this movie, and
Hmm.
I obviously with the really big name directors like Christopher Nolan, it's like this is a new Nolan movie, absolute cinema. We have to go see it.
Are you
Uh,
doing you doing the Martin Scorsese like
the Martin
thing
Scorsese
there?
thing, absolute
Yeah.
cinema.
Absolute
But
cinema.
same with
I've taught
Scorsese, same with was it Steven Spielberg as well? You get that kind of.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, that even back in the 80s, you saw Spielberg, you would go into that thing.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think in the
exactly. Yeah.
biggest cases,
Tarantino's definitely one.
Tarantino, yeah, in the biggest cases, I think directors can be basically as big as movie stars.
Hmm.
It will
But
never, I think,
what?
be quite
Oh,
as
sorry.
big a selling point as, say, back when in the 80s it was like, here's your new Stallone, here's your new Schwarzenegger movies. Like that was always like we're seeing it immediately. But like I
Yeah.
think there it is at the point now where the biggest directors are getting to the point where they're as big as the movie stars now, which is quite interesting.
Because I think it's like obviously the movie star has kind of died nowadays. It's not as
Yeah, there's not as
it's not
many
as
like
prevalent. It's
huge names nowadays. We don't
where
have
you
like a
can sell.
Stallone or Schwarzenegger of our generation. The Rock
We
isn't
don't
good
really. And
enough in
all,
acting for it.
Exactly, yeah. And I think as well, also like IP films have kind of run their course a bit.
Yeah.
So I think, do you think, I just genuinely think, there's no like right or wrong answer. I just think it's an interesting question. Like, do you think directors are the new movie stars in that sense?
I don't think they're necessarily the new movie stars because I feel like the way that is it's the replacement of what was the movie star bracket is now the director bracket here. But
Mhm.
I think they are very much at the point now where the biggest directors are on par with movie stars. Like it's not
There
going
are
to be
quite a
as
few, yeah,
big as like I keep coming back to the same example, but like it's
yeah.
not as big as like what movie stars were. But I think nowadays we are lacking in a lot of kind of major
Mhm.
stars, but so
Yeah.
in a way, but I don't think we're at the point yet where they've exceeded the kind of like
The
price tag of
on-screen
a movie
talent.
star being on it.
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
we still kind of have it today where if there's a new Nick Cage movie, people will go see it because he still makes movies. If there's a new Tom Cruise
Yeah.
movie, people will still go see it. We still got a
They
bit
are
of
they
that.
are they are of a different generation though, aren't they?
They are of different generation.
Yeah.
I think the biggest cases that you'll find nowadays will be like probably like maybe the new Ryan Gosling film or the new Glenn Powell film or something. It's not
But
as
even
big, but
but yeah, even then it's not the biggest thing, you know. But
yeah,
I
you don't
there's
have as
quite a
much of
few
it.
there are quite a few directors who I think of where, you know, obviously the new Nolan film, the new Bong Joon-ho film, the new Jordan Peele film, the new Greta Gerwig film, you know, the directors have a bit of a name now. You know, they'll make a big successful film and you think, what are they going to do next? You know?
I think that was very much the case as well with Osgood Perkins after doing Longlegs.
Yes.
A lot of people are like, where's he going to go next? And then he did The Monkey. And so
Sean
a lot of
Baker
people were
after
watching because
Anora.
of that. Sean, yeah.
Sean Baker, yeah. You know, what's Sean Baker going to do after Anora? You know, people are going to look at his career. Carly Fage after The Substance, what's she going to direct next? You
There's
know,
definitely a lot more spotlight on directors now. I think
I think that's good.
at this present
Maybe.
moment, now that I think about it, they very well could be as big as, if not bigger than movie stars at the moment, that they could be
Mhm.
the new movie stars of today. But on the
I
overall
just think,
scale of cinema, they're not as big as what the biggest Hollywood stars were at their time. But
yeah.
I think there's
I,
definitely a plausible argument for the case of our directors, the new movie stars. I think that's an
I just
interesting
think
point you brought up.
yeah. I don't know. It's something I was thinking about with Mickey 17 coming out and that being the main reason I watched it. But now
Yeah.
we're going to look back now at some older films in our part three, the classic movie section. And because it was the 1st of April, because it was April Fool's Day the other day, we're going to talk about some comedies because we're just going to laugh and a piss take, you know.
Yeah. First of all, though, I want to know, did anyone get you on April Fool's Day?
No,
Did you get anyone on April Fool's Day? Did you get anyone
no,
with a good prank?
no,
No?
because I woke up too late.
Ah, okay. I did. I was going. Initially, the plan was I was going to tell my boss that our biggest client wanted to leave. But I then realized he would probably have a heart attack. So what I did is I put in his
Yeah.
Outlook calendar, I put urgent memo, please click. And when he opened it, it said April Fool's.
Ah, brilliant. I hope he was chill about it.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, nah.
Yeah.
He was
I
fine
was
with it.
tempted. I was tempted to email my uni lecturer on that day, being like, "Oh, I can't come in today," but
Should have.
I just no, I should have done. Yeah. But anyway, so some comedy movies. Obviously, comedy can cover so many different genres. You can blend comedy with so many different genres, like sci-fi comedy, as we did in Mickey 17, horror comedies, rom-coms, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
So who wants to go first? Who wants to go first?
I'll start off this time. My goal today was to pick absolute comedy. Where like the
Absolute comedy.
absolute comedy. But
Okay, what is absolute comedy? What is absolute
by
comedy?
which I mean where the primary focus is the comedy, and it's pretty much almost always comedy, like constant laughs throughout, not necessarily mixed with another genre. Because obviously we've
Okay.
talked about genre blends with comedies before. We've done rom-coms already.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll do like horror comedies in the future. Maybe
Well,
this
we kind of
October
have
we'll
with
do like
we kind of have with Shaun of the Dead.
yeah, we kind of have done that as well. And then obviously we'll probably at some point discuss maybe like dark comedy or sci-fi comedy or whatever. I wanted today just to focus on the pure laugh out loud comedy from the point of view from your average layman who enjoys an Adam Sandler film. So
Oh, right. What have we got? What have
let's
we
kick
got?
off with Adam Sandler, shall we? So one of the comedy films I find I quite often come back to. You're dreading it. You've moved out of frame because you're dreading what I'm going to say.
No, the sun's too bright. The sun is too bright. That's
Fair
all it was.
enough.
But yeah.
Fair enough. But I've gone for a movie called Grown Ups. Look at this dude.
Oh gosh. Okay, go on.
Okay.
I've not watched Grown Ups.
Okay.
I just know
So
I just know they go down a water slide. That's all I know.
yeah, okay. Yeah,
That's
that's the
all I
one.
know from the film is that they go
Okay,
down a
so
water
the
slide.
premise of Grown Ups is that five kids who went to high school together have grown up, and the basketball coach that coached them to their school's only winning trophy died, and they reunite at a funeral, and they decide that they're going to go together with their families for a weekend to a log cabin just to have some nice time together, like the old days, and enjoy the outdoors. So we got Adam. Can you not take me seriously? Take me seriously, man.
When I've got the films that I'm about to talk about, I can't take this at all seriously.
So so we got Adam Sandler, we got Kevin James, we got David Spade, we got Rob Schneider, and we've got oh god damn, no way I've just blanked on my last one. No way I've just blanked on my last one. I don't want
Another
to
man.
I want to say it's Chris Rock, but if I'm wrong, I think that makes me a racist. So I've got to,
Oh,
I've
you
got to
idiot!
check.
You actual idiot! You actual idiot!
I've got to
Oh,
check. I've got to check. I'm not getting cancelled for this.
here you are. Oh man. So, oh,
Let me check.
the
Let
thing
me
is,
check, bro. Let me cook.
I
Let me
will,
cook. It was Chris
I will,
Rock.
I
I'm
will.
not a racist. Hooray! Knew it. So we've got yes, we've got Adam Sandler, Kevin James, Chris Rock, David Spade, Rob Schneider, Sam Hayek. We got the whole cast in here. And it's just about these families that go
Oh
off
man.
for a weekend in a log cabin. They get up to a bunch of really funny shit, and it's just such a funny film. There's so many funny moments. Like there's one moment where they decide to play a game called Arrow Roulette, which involves taking a bow and arrow, shooting an arrow into the sky, and seeing who can stand there the longest without running away. And then they all start running away from this arrow and just tripping and falling
Oh,
on random shit. There's obviously the water slide stuff is funny. There's kind of a plot to it as well. There's a bit of like
there's kind of a
a
plot
plot
to it.
thingy,
There's a little
but
bit. There's a
it's
little bit of
mostly
one.
just
There's a little bit
there's
of one.
funny stuff throughout, and it's just like I like that kind of comedy where it's just we're gonna have joke after joke after joke. We're gonna have a little couple of funny bits here, and it's
Freaking
low stakes. It's
grown-ups, man.
nothing deep, and it's just something you can laugh at with the family.
Grown-ups, man.
I
Grown.
almost brought
Don't
up
they
Grown Ups
go?
too as well.
Oh God. Do they go down the water slide? Because that's all I know from the film.
Yeah, they go down the water slide.
That's good. So it's not
There's a
false
whole
advertising.
segment
Okay,
in a water park. It's quite funny, but
that's good. Have you? You should watch the In-Betweeners movie where they go down the water slide
right, okay.
and Will gets chased by some poo.
Oh man,
I'm not talking about the In-Betweeners movie. So yeah.
that does remind me though. There's an I watched a TV show called It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. There's a funny
Oh
episode
yeah.
of that where they go to a water park as well. I swear, water parks are just a breeding ground for comedies, honestly.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's just funny. It's
So,
just funny.
all right, show me what you've got then. Let's hear this so-called whiplash that you have promised me after the
So
after
I've got
the peak cinema of Grown Ups 2 and Grown Ups.
I have got Absolute Cinema Martin Scorsese film here.
Oh, you have Scorsese. Okay.
Yeah. I've got The Wolf of Wall Street. I've picked.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of it. I've not seen it, but I've
I've
heard
picked
of
The
it.
Wolf of Wall Street. Wolf of Wall Street is like the most blokey film you will ever watch. Like every bloke that I've met loves the movie. I
Yeah.
don't know why. Everybody does, and I think it's also kind of become a bit of a modern classic. Like obviously from the 2010s, this film is, and certain films I think have become like classics from that decade, like Inception, like Parasite, like Mad Max Fury Road. Wolf of Wall Street, I think, is one of them. So basically, this film is about a stockbroker. It's based on the real life exploits of Jordan Belford, who was a real life stockbroker from Wall Street. Kind of started, making a name for himself in the 1980s, where he began a Wall Street crash in the 80s, setting back a bit, but then through like scams and fraud, he managed to build his own empire essentially and got filthy rich. But then it all came crashing down when he got caught by the FBI, basically. So, as I say, directed by Martin Scorsese, and a lot of Scorsese films, they're not comedies, but they do have like dark comedic elements. Think like Goodfellas. It's a gangster film, obviously, but it has a lot of humor with the characters and the performances. But Wolf of Wall Street is an all-out comedy, I would say. As well as being like a crime drama as well, because it's just watching these blokes for 3 hours, just absolutely, these scummy ass people just getting filthy rich, like scamming everyone to build their empire through like selfishness and just absolutely going ballistic with like drugs and prostitutes and everything like that. They just go absolutely ballistic, but then they're just fucking idiots, and everything comes crashing down on them in the end. But it's so funny. It's so goddamn funny. This film is because
Yeah.
it's just watching these because they are just idiots, really. Especially like Jonah Hill's character Donnie. He's so stupid. Leo DiCaprio is fantastic as Jordan Belford. He's got such a great charisma. There's so many funny moments with him. When the speeches he gives to his employees, he's just like absolute gold. And when he's like absolutely drugged up and he's just like he's just like stumbling to his car, and then it's like you think he's actually managed to drive himself home when he's drunk, but no, it's the car is wrecked, and it's just brilliant, man. Margot Robbie's in this as well. It was like her first major breakout role as well as Leo's girlfriend. And again, it's funny. I think for me, what's funnier is it's the behind the scenes photo of like it's like Leo and Margot in like a love scene, and you just got Scorsese just sat direct to them. It's like it's just brilliant. Matthew McConaughey's in it as well. That's where the
Okay, yeah.
it's where that comes from. It's just goddamn. It's so goddamn funny. But I think the thing is the humor is really crucial in helping you enjoy the film, because if it wasn't there, you would just hate the experience of watching this film, because it's like these are arseholes, these people are. But because they're so charismatic and funny, yes, you enjoy watching them, but they're also quite pathetic, some of them. So it makes it funny, and then when they all get busted at the end, set to Mrs. Robinson, it's amazing. That's the thing as well. It's so high energy. It's a 3-hour film, and it does not feel like it at all. It's so high energy, like so adrenaline filled. The music really helps with that. A lot of the music choices, and the fact that Scorsese was like 70 when he made this film, and it feels like something a 30-year-old would make, is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the kind of point I was making. Tarantino said like, a lot of directors get weaker as they get older. Scorsese, this is one of Scorsese's most iconic and acclaimed films. So
Scorsese really went and said absolute bullshit.
Absolute cinema. But yeah, I absolutely adore Wolf of Wall Street. It's a proper classic nowadays, and I'm so glad I watched it, and you should too.
It is one I need to get around to at some point, but as someone who works in finance, I probably shouldn't look for it for any advice. But don't do
that. Yeah, don't be doing that. Yeah, don't be doing that.
Watching Boiler Room was bad enough.
Don't be doing that.
Anyway, so shall I go on to the next one then?
So what's your next absolute cinema film?
Dude, where's my car? Dude, where's my car is my next pick.
Wait a minute.
Dude, where's my car? Sweet. Oh, God. That's an early 2000s kind of stoner comedy.
It sounds like one. Ashton Kutcher. Jesus Christ. Jennifer God. Right, what's this absolute zinger of a film? What's this about?
So basically, these two guys get absolutely wasted the night before, and then the next day they wake up and they're like, dude, where's my car?
Where's my car?
So they have to find that car.
Look at this poster, man. Look at that.
The poster tells you everything you need to know.
Oh my God. What is this guy's trim as well? What is this film?
Bro's getting so critical.
What is this film? Wait a minute, the dude from Final Destination's in this as well.
Yeah.
One of the dudes from Final Destinations.
Yeah.
What is this film? This doesn't make any sense.
It's a stoner comedy about two guys who got wasted and need to find their car, and then suddenly get tracked down by a bunch of different groups of people because they think that they're in possession of some sort of alien space technology.
What?
Yeah, you heard me.
Are you stoned?
No.
You sound it.
But there's a lot of just absolutely hilarious bits in this film. I think one of the funniest one is where they pull up to a Chinese place to get some food, and every time they try and place an order, the woman on the phone, on the other side of the drive-through box just goes, "And then," and then they keep saying order, and then she's like, "And then," and then they're like, "That's it," and she's like, "And then." And then he keeps saying, "No, and then, no," and she keeps saying, "And then, and then, and then, and then, and then." And then there's like silence for a
Oh,
bit, and then
man.
eventually, like 10 seconds later, and
And
then,
then,
and then it's just there's so many completely stupid funny things. One of the funny scenes as well is they both get tattoos. Well, they both got tattoos while they were stoned, and they keep
I love
asking
that.
each other what their tattoo on their back says. And then so the one guy goes, "Dude, what does my tattoo say?" And the other guy's like, "Sweet, what does my tattoo say?" "Dude, what does my tattoo say?" "Sweet, what does my tattoo say?" Because the tattoos actually say "dude" and "sweet," and they don't.
But no, I don't believe that. That's too unrealistically tame for a tattoo getting stoned. Like ordinarily, it would just be I am a massive cock or something, or something
Honestly,
like that. It's
it's
not going
such
to be sweet or do. No, no, no,
it's a
no.
movie that made me just laugh out loud so much that for quite a while this was my favorite movie of the year. That
Nothing enough.
That honestly
Wait,
though, that if anything,
What year?
that just tells you how bad the other movies I watched this year were to begin with.
Oh,
Considering
this. Oh, from this year.
yeah, from of all the movies I've watched this year, that was my favorite for a while. Probably
Oh,
until I
right. Well,
watched
what?
Deadpool and Wolverine again.
Huh.
Even then, it's still pretty high in my rankings for this year so far, out
Is
of
it?
like the
Is it?
22 I've watched.
Is it above Anora? Oh God.
We're having an
Oh.
Inside Out 2 situation again.
Oh, you are kidding.
We're having
You
an
are
Inside Out 2
you
situation
are
again.
you are kidding me. You've got this above Anora. What? Hang on. You've got this above Anora. Are you high? Is it above the substance? Oh, do not tell me it's above the substance as well. Is it? Is it?
Yep. Robert's flabbergasted.
What is going on?
Look, objectively, it might not be a good film, but it is so funny unrelentlessly that I just laughed for a whole 90 minutes. And honestly, in January, I needed that. And that was
You know
so
what?
funny.
You know what? Fair enough. Was it as funny as this? Actually, yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But to be fair,
Yeah.
no, objectively, those other movies were better. But I just had
Okay.
so much fun with this movie.
You know what? Fair enough. Actually, I
Because
can't
that's
not
again,
fun.
that's the point of the movies I'm listing is not they're good movies. It's they're hilarious and they keep me
They're
laughing the
funny.
whole way through and they make me feel good. And I can
Fair
just
enough.
forget about everything else and just laugh my head off at something funny.
You
And that's what I
can just go,
go for.
ha.
I'm not going for Scorsese absolute cinema with my list. That said, Dude,
This
Where's
is
My
it.
Car is peak cinema.
It's,
I'll do you one better.
no, no.
It's the Mr. L seal approval peak cinema.
Okay.
Just be glad I didn't talk about Ricky Stenicki.
No, I would have preferred that.
No.
I've got to watch Ricky Snicky still. Anyway, how are we? I can't believe it. So we're going from a fucking 2000 stoner comedy, and now I'm going to a bloody silent film. I can't believe it. How? Okay.
Only on this
So
podcast will you get this quality, honestly.
exactly, or lack of quality.
Well, hey, whoa.
It's our podcast. I can slag it off. But anyway, so we're going back. So now we're going way back, literally 100 years ago to the 1920s here.
Wow.
Um, to silent era comedy. Obviously, a lot of silent era comedies like Laurel and Hardy, Charlie Chaplin. But for me, I'm focusing on, for me, my favorite of that era of cinema, Buster Keaton, who he was well known for doing a lot of outrageous stunts in his films. He often had like a very stone cold expression to kind of have the contrast of like his stone cold expression against all this ludicrous physical comedy going on around him. But I honestly, it's a bit of a niche of cinema that I really love, and I'm not stupid. I understand that silent films are not for everyone. I completely get that. I'm not naive to that. And I understand that you're not going to watch like a German expressionist film or a Russian Soviet montage film, whatever. It's so it's of such a different era and of such a different style of filmmaking because obviously there was no sound, so a lot of it was very visual. Performances are more based in like theatre. A lot of techniques in early cinema were theatrical techniques and whatnot. But if anybody does want to get into silent films but doesn't know how to, I always say start with Buster Keaton films because they are quite simple and they are quite accessible, but they're really well made and they're really entertaining. So before I talk about the film I'm going to talk about, I'm going to just give a couple of quick little recommendations for like his short films because he also did a lot of short films that are like 20 minutes long and whatnot. So, and I sent these to you actually in case you want to watch them, and we'll leave a link to them in the description because you can find them on YouTube as well. So films like One Week, which is really fun. It's got great set designs and it's very fun. Cops has some amazing physical comedy. Those are like the two I recommend. They're the ones that kind of pop into my head for like his shorts. And if you like those, then check out the feature film, which I'm going to talk about, The General. I think you said you heard of this film, haven't you?
I feel like I've heard of it somewhere. Cannot place my finger on it, but I've heard the name The General somewhere as being an old silent movie. So I don't know where I've heard it from, but
To be fair, this is probably Keaton's or one of his most acclaimed films. It was his big like passion project. It actually bombed at the box office way back when. And kind of cost him his like creative freedom in Hollywood at the time. But basically, so The General, it's about Buster Keaton's character. He's called Johnny Gray, and it's set during like the American Civil War. And he's a train driver, and the train is called the General, and basically it gets stolen. So he has to kind of get it back, and he's also trying to enlist in the army for the Civil War, but he can't. And so he's trying to prove himself for his lady friend, and that was kind of a trope of a lot of his films. He was like the earnest everyman, kind of trying to prove himself for his female love interest in the film. Pretty simple stuff, but quite earnest kind of stuff. Actually, it's really timeless and whatnot. It's just a really fun film. I like the historical element with the Civil War backdrop. It's quite fun. I think the idea of like him enlisting in the army, he can't make it. Some interesting ideas of like a male character of that time. I think it's kind of an interesting idea in the film. But the main meat potatoes of the films are all the stunt work and the stuff with the trains are incredible. There's some incredible shots, and it's all done practically. Like for a film that's literally 100 years old. It's from 1926. This film is.
wow.
It's that old, and all the stuff with that is phenomenal. It's just all the stunts with it, all the crashes. It's just amazing, and it's just and all the stunts that Keaton does. It's just brilliant stuff. But it's always all of them are so fun, and yeah. If I kind of use in the general to just sort of represent Keaton's filmography because that's basically my pick for this slot. It's just Buster Keaton's films generally. But The General is like one of his most iconic ones, so I figured I'd mention that. But it can be any of them. Could be Steamboat Bill Jr., could be The Cameraman, could be Sherlock Jr., could be any of them, really. But I picked The General because it has a bit more than the average one. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. But Keaton films are such like a niche obsession of mine. I just really enjoy them. And he's just one of my favorite filmmakers of that era. And actually, just of all time. And you can feel his influence on so much that has come after, you know.
You really weren't kidding about the whiplash.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, what did I say? What did I bloody say?
Like, I figured the whiplash would be bad, but I didn't think it was going to be "Dude, Where's My Car" to 1920s kind of bad.
What did I tell you?
There's an 80-year gap involved there.
Yeah, Matt, that's
Part three
insane.
now. Having gone from me to you to me to you, we're going back to me, and I've got another comedy movie. It is mostly comedy, but I think it's got quite a bit of heart to it, and it is genuinely just one of my favorite movies ever. I really love it. It is a movie about a biology teacher who tries to save his school's music department due to budget cuts by becoming a UFC fighter. It's called Here Comes the Boom. It stars Kevin James.
Kevin James.
I know Kevin James. He's so fun.
Okay.
King of Queens is an
Where's
absolutely amazing sitcom, honestly. Love Kevin James. But yeah, so Here Comes the Boom. It's got him and it's got the guy who plays the Fonz. He's the music teacher. What's his name? Henry Winkler, that's it. Yes, it's got them in it. Yeah, so basically, Kevin James plays this biology teacher who tries to save his friend's job as a music teacher by earning money fighting in the UFC. And I mean, we watched it because like my dad likes the UFC and whatever. We watched it when it came out in cinema in 2012, and we had like the whole cinema to ourselves. But it's just a really fun film. I really love it. It's got some really good funny moments. But it's got quite a lot of heart to it as well about like the importance of like music in school
Yeah.
and everything. And the idea of this biology
Nowadays, especially,
teacher
that's more prevalent.
and like the idea of this biology teacher really like doesn't care about his job, like learning to care about like the kids on the way and making teaching fun and everything, and trying to do his best to help the school by going out and getting his ass beat by a bunch of UFC fighters every day. But
Fair
it's just
enough.
it's a really fun comedy, but it's really nice as well. I've really not got that much more to say on it, except I really like it. If any of you watching are longtime viewers and you saw my movie rankings from 2022, you'll know this movie came quite high. I think it was top 10. I
Yeah.
think 2023, I think I watched it again that year and it came pretty high. It's one I always come back to quite often just because I really enjoy it. It's really fun. It's really nice. Solid film. That's all I've got to say
Yeah.
on it, honestly. It's just really nice film. I really enjoy it.
Fair enough. And yeah, I can't really say a lot more. I haven't seen it, obviously. I don't know why when you're describing it, I thought it was like School of Rock. You were going to say, I don't know why. Like when you mentioned like a music school, like a school music department, I thought you were going to say School of Rock or something. But yeah, it's
School of
another
Rock is
Kevin
good
James
as well,
film,
though.
which it's another Kevin James film, which you obviously mentioned with what was it,
Grown-ups, yeah.
Zookeeper.
And Zookeeper, yeah. Zookeeper,
Yeah.
Grown-ups. This is all Kevin James. I really like Kevin James. I think he's quite funny. I really enjoyed his sitcom King of Queens. It's pretty good. So I do quite like his comedy. But yeah, so what is your final pick?
So I've saved not the best till last, but for me the funniest till last,
Okay.
right? And this is like, mate, I rewatched it actually because it's a bit of a comfort film. I rewatch it a lot. This film that I do. It's a British comedy. It's of the 1970s, right? Uh, and well, it's a Monty Python film,
Oh,
right?
oh, I've seen
And it
some.
is, and it is Monty Python's The Life of Brian.
I've seen it.
Oh my God! Yes,
I
you've
think I've
seen
seen
it.
this one.
It's the basic parody of Jesus.
Is this the one with the Jehovah bit?
Yeah,
It's
Jehovah,
so
Jehovah. They're stoning when they just stone that old guy.
I love that scene. It's so funny.
I love that
They
bit.
just
I
keep
love that
stoning
bit.
him.
Thing is, I've back in like I think 2021 it would have been 2020 2021. I had a bit of a Monty Python like John Cleese obsession. I love 40 Towers. I still do. I watched a lot of the Python films like Holy Grail, Meaning of Life. But Life of Brian is the one that I've continued to rewatch over the years. This is in my family is quoted verbatim. I had a shirt with the he's Messiah, he's a very naughty boy. I had that on a t-shirt, and I have that. If you watch some of my other videos, you can see that t-shirt in
Oh
some of
man.
them. But my God, I adore this film to high heaven because honestly, it's so quotable. So many amazing bits in it. I said the stoning bit is brilliant.
That is so funny.
The people's front of Judea. But what have the Romans ever done for us, eh? The aqueduct. It's so good. Obviously, you've got the legend that is Bigus Dickus. Can't even say it.
You find it funny when I say the name. Bigus.
Bigus Dickus.
Bigus. So
I was,
funny.
oh man, I have a very good friend called Bigus Dickus. And for some reason, we always quote Wadwick. As of late,
Ludwig.
Wadwick, we just start quoting that line. Me and my dad, for some reason, as of late. But the thing is, with Life of Brian, obviously, there's so many quotable bits, as you just gathered from us just quoting the film verbatim. It's so good. Crucifixion on your left.
Always look on the
Look on
bright
the bright
side of
side
life.
of life. Do-do, 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 do-do. Even some of the gags, like the title cards, like it's like setting up the scene of like, it's Jerusalem, Saturday afternoon, about tea time, that title card, or the Colosseum, the children's matinee, just like some of those gags.
Yeah.
But I think for me, this is also a really smart film because obviously Monty Python, they're obviously a sketch comedy group of
Yes.
the 60s and 70s and whatnot. And a lot of their other films feel more like feature-length sketches, really. And this one does to a degree. Obviously it has their multi-rolling and whatnot. But I think it feels the most like a movie. Like it has this kind of strong plot that is clear throughout the film and not just a series of skits throughout.
Yes,
Um,
because when I watched
yeah,
Holy Grail, I very much got the feeling it was just a series of skits with that way
yeah,
that one was.
a series of very good skits, but
Yeah.
you know, I do love Holy Grail, to be fair. And I think Meaning of Life, I think, suffers from that the most. It's a great film, I love it, but it still feels like a lot just a series of skits thrown together. But Life of Brian has this plot that you can follow throughout, but still has that Python humor. And also, its comment on religion, I think, is genuinely really insightful. And not I like taking the piss out of religion itself, but the whole, organized groups and religion and like mob mentality and kind of idolizing people like, Jesus. Because the whole gimmick is that, Brian is like next door
He's the
Jesus. And
Messiah!
I'm not the
I'm not
Messiah.
the bloody Messiah!
It's,
Oh.
it's funny. It's when that bloke has been silent for 80 years. It's that. Yeah, but I think that it's quite clever, like writing just the whole. Brian is like a substitute for Jesus essentially in the
Yeah.
story, and he's like this everyman character, and he stumbles into being a messiah-like figure through sheer accident, through sheer coincidence, and I just find it so funny and just really interesting commentary, and I just really enjoy that element of the film. I think it's quite thought-provoking. But I think the main thing I took away from this film on this recent rewatch is obviously, it was, when I was younger, yes, it was funny. Yes, it was quotable. Yeah, its ideas of religion are interesting. But for me, I think it's with the ending, always look on the bright side of life, which is honestly one of my favorite film endings, period. Because obviously at the end, Brian does get crucified, right? And obviously, it's a joke initially. You got the people surrounding Judea, they're coming along and they're like, "We love what you're doing, Brian." And it's like, well, but they're idiots, so obviously they're going to say that. You got the Romans who are going to like take that Brian down, but they get the wrong guy because he's like lying. He's like, "No, I'm only pulling your leg," and obviously you're still laughing at that point. But when people like Judith, who was a bit more savvy and a bit more smart, when she kind of falls for it and she's just like believing everything. It's like not actually helping Brian. You're like, oh, that's a bit of a shame. And then his mother gets the wrong end of the stick, and it's like she's not helping him, and she's like scolding him again. And it's like, yeah, your kind of laughter sort of dissipates at the end, and then just as everything kind of quiets down, you just kind of feel a bit. Oh, suddenly Eric Idle pops up, and he's like, "Don't worry," and then he starts singing the song. And it's a catchy song. It's so good, but it is just that ultimate kind of look on the bright side of things, always trying to look in the, look at things in a positive way. And, ultimately things could be worse and they're going to be all right. And I think that was such a thing I needed to hear because I was a bit stressed out, this past month. I had a lot going on. And so, yeah, it's going to be all right. It could be worse. And, just have a laugh, have a smile and just, have a whistle if you can whistle,
Yeah.
which I can't. And just have fun. And yeah, it's just class, absolutely class. This film is, and I love it to bits.
Yeah, it's a good film. We watched it quite recently. So
Yeah,
one of the guys in my Five Guys at Freddy's group, Mac, he has a shirt from Holy Grail that says "That's no ordinary rabbit" on it. But
yeah,
yeah, so he got us to watch Holy Grail first after one of the episodes that we recorded. I think it was when we finished
mm,
Pizzeria Sim back in September.
yeah,
Then I think in November, after we did our Getting Hard episode, we it's as sus as it sounds. We then watched Meaning of Life. He was like, "Okay, we got to
yeah,
watch Meaning of Life now if you haven't seen it." And I was like, "Okay, we'll put it
mhm,
on, we'll see." And it was so
yeah,
funny. We had
yeah.
so much fun laughing at that together.
In the meaning of life. The big guy who explodes.
Yeah.
That's the one. Apparently, the one scene that Quentin Tarantino finds genuinely disgusting. The guy who's like gore and blood is his thing. He finds that absolutely disgusting. And he
That's
hates it.
crazy.
Him of all people, yeah. I also love the Galaxy song in that film. You know, when
Yeah.
the guy comes out the fridge, the guy, Eric Idle comes out the fridge and he starts singing. I love that song. It's so good.
It is funny.
Whenever life gets you down, Mrs. Brown.
The funniest
Love it.
part for me was I love the genius of the Jehovah bit where this guy's
Yeah,
for those at home who haven't seen
getting
it.
stoned.
So the idea is that this guy's going to be getting stoned because he was it blasphemed because he said the name Jehovah.
Yeah.
And so every time the guy preparing the thing was saying about what was going on, but he said Jehovah, they started throwing rocks at him instead of the guy who was supposed to be
Yeah.
getting stoned. And then someone else said you said Jehovah, so they throw a stone at him. And then at the end, he's like, nobody throws stones, not even if I say Jehovah. And then everyone starts pelting him with the stones. And then the funniest bit for me is right at the very end, when like 3 or 4 of them are carrying this giant boulder and just slam this boulder on him. That was the bit that absolutely
It's so
cemented
good.
it for me.
It's so good. It's so good. I think that's the thing. It's a really funny joke. So great like visual humor, but also it makes a point about like mob mentality where you just follow blindly, and I
Yeah,
think it's
it makes
interesting.
a smart point, but it's
It's
also just ridiculously funny.
yeah, it's using humor in a really clever way, and I love Life of Brian. It's my favorite of like all the Python projects. It's absolutely my favorite, and the one it's the one I've revisited the most. I've rewatched it a
Yeah.
good few times now.
I'm
Yeah,
sure that Mac is going to make us watch Meaning of Life at some point soon. Or wait, see, this was Life of Brian. Yeah, he's going to make us watch Meaning of Life some
yeah,
point soon. So I'll
yeah.
probably watch that at some point. Then maybe at some point we'll discuss Monty Python films as a whole.
Maybe, yeah.
But no,
We
they
could,
are quite funny. I mean, Holy Grail has some good bits as well. The Black Knight is an
mm.
absolute classic. Tis but a scratch.
I'll scratch your arms off. No, it isn't. What's that then? It's merely a flesh wound.
I also find something like just really funny about how absurdly stupid the Knights of Ni are. We are the
We are the
Knights
knights
who
of say
say Ni.
me. I also love the bring out your dead, but I'm not dead yet. Boom. I honestly, yeah. This is the best one that I could have ended on. Life of Brian.
Yeah, this was a good one to end on. Oh,
Yeah, this is it.
that was funny, just reminiscing
Yeah.
about Life of Brian.
That was great. That was great. But yeah,
Oh,
that was
what
our
a wild
ninth
ride
episode
part
talk.
3 was. What an
I know we
absolutely
talked
wild
about
ride.
it really was, and not just what you've seen on camera, but also all the technical things I've had to deal with today.
And
Mainly
I
the dog
wanted to
not
talk
shutting up.
quickly about one more movie though. It's a new movie that I've
Yes.
not had time to watch yet, but I was hoping I'd watch it so I could put it in here. It's a new movie on Amazon Prime. It stars Nicolas Cage and, would you believe it, the crossover of the century, John Cena, in a comedy.
I saw.
And you know what it's called? Thick of It. Be late April Fools. I'm in the thick of it, everybody knows.
Right, that's it.
The movie went from the screen to the ring to the pen to the trash can. So they never released it. I
Yeah, they
had
better
you for
not
a
do. No.
moment. I had you for a moment.
You had me. I'm gullible. I'm gullible as anything. I really am.
Hey, look, it says gullible on the ceiling.
Oh, so it does. Oh man, you stole my lungs.
Oh man,
Asdef
I had
movie.
you for
Who
a
needs
moment.
comedies week? Who needs that when you can watch Asdef movie? Um. Anyway, so that's the end of this episode, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let us know all the things we talked about, if you can make it out of what we talked about. What's some of your favorite comedy movies? What's your thoughts on Mickey 17 if you've seen it? And everyone, get prepared. This is the penultimate episode before the Minecraft movie. Yes!
As a child, I yearned for the mines.
Flint and Steel.
Flint and steel.
This is going to be peak cinema. I'm going to be doing this.
Absolutely.
We're just
Absolutely.
going to be sat in the cinema. We're just going to be sat in the cinema for 90 minutes just doing this.
Absolute her. Just edit Scorsese with a picture of the villager's head on it. Absolute her.
To be fair, he's got the eyebrows for it.
Oh, next episode's going to be so fun. Don't miss it.
Yeah, and we were going to be doing some fun stuff for that one. So but we built it up for too long, and we cannot disappoint. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
We're at the point now where we can't back out of it. We're stuck doing this.
It's too late to turn back now, son.
It's too late.
Yeah. Anyway, with all that said and done, like, subscribe, comment to both of our channels, and with all that said, see you in a bit.
Bye. Chicken jockey.